Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure seeing you all again. The last time I was here, we had, I'm Earl Wayne Colley. I'm from Afton, New York. I am not a Sidney resident, but I am here on the behalf of the people in the Central New York Landowners Coalition that asked us to come up and represent the landowners. The problem not the problem, but the beautiful letters we heard have come from businesses, not from your neighbors. Your neighbors are in desperate need of jobs. Farmers are losing their property. They are all behind on their taxes. If you want to keep a pastoral presence in this town, you better support your farmers. There's 207,000 acres in the Central New York Landowners Coalition. Roughly 10 to 15,000 people. As far as economics goes, when I drove up tonight, I came down Main Street in the village. At least a half a dozen stores empty. One mall totally closed, another one half closed. Another one, I understand ethanol is picking up some of. And, you know, I don't see how economic growth and people are going to be here without an industry or a job in the future. As far as the economics continues to go, the taxes, fuel, utilities, they're driving everybody broke. If ethanol stays here and they have natural gas, an abundant, reliable supply, I'm sure they would appreciate only paying 30% of their annual utility cost, which would lead probably to research and development, which requires jobs, high-tech jobs, supported by an industry. One industry, there is no other industry coming that can produce as many jobs. I took exception on Mr. Slotsky's presentation the other night. I think the first thing that got my ire up a little bit was a reference to English law before we became a country. We became a country because of English law. We rejected it. We formed our own constitution. The presentation was full of partial truths, misrepresentations, and omissions. I wouldn't call it the pleasure, but I've been with David on, what, a dozen different occasions with these? It's a fire sale on these moratoriums. He's paid to get them out there to you. He's paid by the Parks Foundation. Once again, the Community Environment Defense Council attorneys, Helen and David Slotsky, assisted in drafting this moratorium. Other towns that have accepted them, or they have free legal advice, including, but not limited to, Dryden, New York, and Middlesfield, New York. Guess what? They're both getting sued. In Bethel, David Slotsky stated that they are not litigating attorneys. In Unadilla, New York, Helen Slotsky admitted the Community Environment Defense Council received $25,000 reward from the Park Foundation in 2010. David, do you have the figures for 2011? No. Okay. Now, the time, Mr. Slotsky had 1 hour and 5 minutes last time. I want the same consideration.
It's a public hearing.
That's up to the town. Thank you, sir.
Your time's up. You only got
Time is up. Sit down.
You want to leave?
No, I'm not leaving.
Well, you can shut up then.
Then the rest of us...
Hey, this is democracy!
The rest of us get as much time as he does.
Set your hair on fire right off the
No,
road.
she's not.
Lies, disruption, and intimidation. That's what we face. These towns are not the clients, as you would be led to believe by Mr. Slotsky. The Park Foundation is their client. At the meeting I attended, the solicitation to induce towns to enlist this free legal advice is the numerous towns that have a moratorium, The facts are about a dozen towns have bans and another dozen have moratoriums. It's now up to about 44. Less than half of them are in the Miss Alice Shale. The 3 cities that they do include in it, New York City, Oneonta, and Syracuse. They're all protected areas. It's a numbers game they're playing with you, so they can go to the next town and say, we have numbers and numbers and numbers of towns that have already done it. You're not alone out there. This is a list of what they call the 68 different towns. Only 13 of them have bans or moratoriums in drilling areas.
We're gonna be here till midnight.
Yes, you are.
There needs to be some,
My
there
brother
needs to be
gave
some
it.
kind of limit to the amount of time that a speaker takes. Knock it off.
Okay, the other thing I took objection to was the partial truths. In Mr. Slosky's presentation, he went on with the oil and gas law and the mineral mining law. If I can find, here we go. What he showed you on the slide was, for the purpose stated here in this title, shall supersede all other state and local laws relating to the extraction mining industry. And that was all he read. On the gas one, he read, this provision of this article shall supersede all local laws or ordinances relating to the relationship of oil, gas, and solution mining. That's all he read. The entire law goes on the extractive mining one, provided, however, that nothing in this title shall be construed to prevent any local government from enacting local zoning ordinances or other local laws which impose strict mine land reclamation standards or requirements for those found herein. That's explicit right to zone. In the oil and gas section, but shall not supersede local government jurisdiction over local law, over local roads, and rights of local government under the real property tax. There is nothing in there that specifies they have the right to zone an industry out, an oil and gas industry. And if you didn't know the whole law, you would be leaving what you were told. All right. When I was looking into this, I contacted the past director of mineral resources that was in office when this law was written. And he informed me that it was written as a separate law. If they meant to change the law, they would have did it at the same time they did the mineral mining law. All right. Mr. Swansky also showed you some cases. He neglected to mention the one that does pertain to the oil and gas industry. He read you case laws that are subject to the mining end of it. Their purpose was for mining, for valid mining, not for oil and gas. They claim there's no case law directly on point interpreting whether the Oil and Gas Act should preempt a valid enacted zoning law, which otherwise would have the effect of prohibiting oil, gas, and mining solution activities. All right, that case is Erie County case. It's invited gas against the town of Canatona, and the town was sued. They lost. All right, moving along. The one thing I want to bring out to you individuals. I have talked to representatives from 3 or 4 municipal insurance agencies. Your town liability insurance protects you for legitimate legislative activity. If you do not have legitimate legislative activity, you can lose your indemnification, and the town and the insurance company will not give the liability insurance to the town.
See you in court!
Which will leave you all personally liable, and the town taxpayers having to pick up the burden for your actions. Just one thing I think you should also bring out to Mr. Slosky, if he chooses to speak tonight, is ask him, how do you qualify as a 501c3 when you're promoting specific local legislation. I thank you for your time.
Dr. President.
Pair him up, Dougie.
Everybody hear me? Yes, sir. I spoke in this room in 1958, so I think I can still do it without the mic. I live in the village of Sidney, and I'm going to speak about New York State and water only. And if you have any questions or comments, I hope I have enough time. We'll give you a shot. Or you can talk with me later. Quickly, I want to mention about the fracking is breaking up the rock to extract the gas. And in New York State, there's been over 60,000 wells drilled since the late 1820s. Vertical wells. Thank you. I forgot to say vertical. Now please, you can raise your hand if I got something there wrong. Otherwise, wait for the question. What did I do wrong?
You want to ensure that the public knows that we're talking vertical wells?
I just said vertical.
There's no frack.
I just said
There's no
vertical.
frack.
Frack.
There's no
Okay,
frack.
now there's 14,000 active wells now drilling for natural gas in New York State. And some of them, several of them, are hydrofracking with water, with some sand, and with some chemicals. Very small amounts. So, that's been going on all those years. Now, in 2008, suddenly, there's a new method of horizontal fracking using lots of water, sand, and chemicals. And now, the politicians of the DEC decided to come in and let's regulate this and get it right. Although it's been going on almost 10 years in Louisiana, in Texas, and so forth. Now, my point right now, I do not know how any drug-free person can say that vertical drilling for gas is not safe. It's impossible, because you've never said anything at all about all those wells, all those pipelines before 2008. The other thing I have is questions. First of all, who in here is a village resident?
I'm born here.
Who is either a landowner or a lives in the town of Sidney? Thank you. Now, who is here that is neither one of those categories?
Who's the Sidney sole taxpayer?
Oh, you shouldn't be here. But anyway, okay. Who has read the draft? Less than half. Okay, who has read some of the SGEIS?
Don't touch me. Do not. Keep your hands off of me.
Very good.
Don't touch me.
How many knew, here's where you gotta be honest, how many knew that they were hydrofracking vertically in New York State? How many knew that? Well, everybody knows it's safe. Okay. How many have been to Pennsylvania to check out the well? Oh, very good. Hope you're honest. How many in the village of Sidney buy bottled water?
Oh, you bunch of liars.
One
Everybody
person.
here does. Raise your goddamn
That's because the water's so good, right? How many in the town of Sidney buy bottled water? I don't know why they got bottled water on the shelf. Bring it right in the hat, right? Right, okay. Okay, over, I also I've been to so many gas meetings. I predict that the permits and gas drilling for this area will probably take at least 4 years. And so I think that the moratorium could be tabled or postponed or whatever you call it for a couple, 3 years until you see, wait a minute, until you see how the drilling is going down in the Wiggle, Appalachian. Now, you get a chance to look at that. And, okay, any quickies? Ask you any questions.